All right, next up, we got a featherweight scrap here between UFC newcomer Luke Riley. Actually, not newcomer, sophomore. UFC sophomore Luke Riley coming in at minus 300, going up against Michael Aswell, who comes in at plus 250. Now, Riley made his successful UFC debut, I believe, back in November when he got off on Bogdan Grad. Now, that was a fight where he struggled in the first round with his grappling, but then eventually in the second round found a big shot to put Grad away and showcase the power that he possesses. That's kind of how his last Cage Warriors fight went against Teriel Abasov, where he was getting repeatedly taken down, but showcasing good enough defense that he wasn't getting put in bad positions. And then in the second round, it was clear his opponent had gassed themselves out, and Riley was able to land the big shot to put him away. Now, Riley, one of the most entertaining and high-level prospects coming out of Cage Warriors. He put on a ton of entertaining fights. Even his fight against Alexander Luff, if you have not watched that fight, I would highly recommend going back to watch it. It was an absolute back-and-forth war where Riley finally got the third-round finish there over Luff. He found himself in some bad positions in that fight as well, but his determination and grit really pulled off from that night, and he was able to get the win. This guy's very skilled in the striking game. He has good combinations, good head kicks, very good timing as well, good counter striker. But I feel maybe his hype might be surpassing his skill set. Maybe. You know, the odds kind of make me feel that way. Obviously, we'll talk about how I see this fight actually going down once I get past the Aswell background as well. But he is a fun fighter, but not a guy I see making it into a championship level type of guy. I think he's kind of going to be, Paddy Pimblett level. Obviously, I believe he's a training partner of Paddy. Maybe not even earn himself a title shot, right? Lightweight is a very deep division. If he gets the UFC push, though, and they give him the right path to get to a title fight, sure, maybe he gets it. But, some of those top 10 guys are going to be tough for him to deal with, especially with how hittable he can be at times and some of the grappling holes in his game that better grapplers with good cardio could potentially expose in him. But in terms of an entertaining fighter, he has a big following as well, so I'm sure the crowd is going to be rocking whenever they see him walk out and obviously fight. But he's a fun fighter, but striking is probably the best part of his game. Now he's going up against a fellow striker here in Michael Aswell, who produced a big knockout win over Lucas Almeida last time around in his first fight where he got a full training camp with the UFC. Now he made his UFC debut up a weight class, short notice, against Balaji Oki, and he had a pretty good first round outstriking the power punching style of Oki. But then it seemed like the size and power and athleticism advantage of Oki really started to come through, and he was starting to chop away at Aswell, and Oki won the next two rounds to win that fight on the scorecards. But the durability on Aswell, very high level. He ate some big shots and didn't really flinch at a lot of those shots. And his style is just very basic. Now, I mean this respectfully as much as possible, because that style is very straightforward. He sticks with the jab cross. That's usually his form of attack, but he stays so consistent with it that it really frustrates his opponents. He does a good job in terms of badgering the nose of his opponent, staying on the gas, staying on the pressure, fighting the same way from minute 1 to minute 15. What I've kind of hampered on him for in the past, especially going into his Contender Series fight against Bogdan Grad, is that he needs to throw with a little bit more power. Like, he has a few knockout wins on his record, but the lack of power he's throwing with can be outdone by grapplers and by heavier punchers, similar to Danny Silva, who I talked about earlier on the card. But getting that knockout win against Lucas Almeida is a step in the right direction. The asterisk beside that fight, though, is I believe there was an injury Almeida was going into that fight with, so maybe that compromised him a little bit. So I'm going to put an asterisk beside that. But Aswell is a solid fighter, and confidence must be sky high right now, especially considering what his 4-ounce Fight Club team is doing right now. You got Joshua Van, who's the flyweight champion. You got Alden Correa, who's absolutely been killing it as of late. Now Aswell wants to join the success of the team, and he sees this opportunity against Luke Riley to be his coming out party, especially with the platform that he's been given in this co-main event slot. Grappling wise, nothing special. He has good enough defense to keep this fight striking, which is often where he'll look to try to keep fights and pick apart his opponents and utilize his output to get the better of them. But he's a solid, efficient, reliable fighter. Now, here against Luke Riley, it seems like this is a spot that the UFC is trying to set up Luke Riley to get a big win in front of the hometown crowd. But Aswell could make this a fight. Aswell is a gamer. I would put Aswell better than Alexander Loof, and we saw how close Loof was able to upsetting Luke Riley that night. Riley's hittable. If Aswell has started working on his knockout power and throwing with a little bit more emphasis, it's possible he can land that big shot to put Riley on wobbly legs as well. Frame-wise, Riley only has a 1-inch height advantage. They have the same reach at 69 inches. But this will be a competitive battle, much more competitive than -300 indicates. This is one of those spots where I'm going to keep my eye on the odds, and if that line continues to widen, Aswell may not be a bad sprinkle because of how competitive he can make this fight. I don't see Riley putting him away. I've seen Aswell eat big shots from bigger power punchers. I expect this just to be a battle through and through between these guys where they just go at it, both guys landing big shots, and once this hit the scorecards, it could be either guy's fight. So I'd put Riley closer to maybe -150, -185 in this spot. And it would not at all surprise me if Aswell pulls off the upset. But I still find myself on the Riley side. I think he ends up landing more effective damage. I think he mixes in some elbows and some knees. Maybe he cuts as well, and he's able to get some optics to look in his favor. And then obviously having the hometown crowd and hometown scoring, whatever you guys want to take from that, in his favor probably leans him as well. But at -300, I would not take that type of chalk at high-level confidence. So again, final prediction for that is going to be Luke Riley by decision.